Devlin, Untamed.
Welcome to the podcast, people. iOS, it's only sport. Martin Devlin, Lachlan War, the only true daily independent radio sports program in this country. Today, very sad news indeed. The passing of Norm Hewitt, way too young, at 55 years old. The former All Black who deserves to be remembered for being so much more than just that. Michael Laws wrote Norm's book, very close friend of his. He's a colleague here at the platform and has spent so much time with Norm over the last few years as he's been fighting motor neurone disease. Michael was on the program. It's difficult when there is something so sad and somber to talk about to then pivot, segue, however you like to call it, into talking about silly old sport. Feels kind of awkward, but this is what sport is for me, and I hope it is for you too, that it takes our mind up and away from all the serious stuff that's going on in life. It's just a whole lot of people, mostly men, playing games for money, pretty much. And we get so into it, so excited about it, so up and down and around. And that's what we do on this program. We talk about sport. Mark Guy, MG, was our very special guest previewing Origin 3. Rugby. We went north to get an English perspective on our two-test series, us versus them, and an Irish view on the drawn 1-1 series between the Box and the Mix. Will Greenwood was on the program, World Cup winner with England in 2003, and Patrick McCarry, who works for Rugby Pass with the Irish perspective. LBP with TMG, that's Let's Be Positive, Twisel's Matt Gunn. Graham Agars was talking about the future of Novak. Have we seen the official end of the Big Three after Alcaraz won Wimbledon? We played What is More Chance of Happening. We did the Tide 5. And we begin the program the same way every single day, which is tablets in hand. I say, gather my flock. It's time for a sermon. JBC just beat Canberra. Let's go to the mountaintop.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
All right, listen up, Warriors fans. It is all about beating Canberra. That is the only thing that counts. Beat Canberra. Now, forget all the points table calculations and permutations and computations. None of it matters, dick. I have followed this team for way too long now to still buy into this whole, look, we've only got to win another 15 games in a row and we're going to make the 8 trip. Forget the rest of the remaining fixtures. Forget them until we beat Canberra, because if we don't, then none of the rest matters. Win against the Raiders, then and only then can we look at the next game. Not the one after that or the one after that. First up, Canberra. That is it. That is all. The Warriors are now in a dogfight to make the 8 with about 8 other teams. Each team is in exactly the same boat, and we all play each other. The Warriors' last 4 games are all against teams who are also in the 8, who will all be battling to either stay in the 8 or improve their positions ahead of the finals. None of this is worth talking about it. None of it means anything unless first and foremost we go to Canberra on Friday night and we win. So let's just separate, isolate and concentrate on what is most important, the only thing that's important. Beat Canberra. Then worry about what happens next after that, because if we don't win on Friday night, none of the rest means jack.
Devlin.
What do you want? We want information. Information. You won't get it.
The platform.
Norm Hewitt. 23 tests for the All Blacks between 93 and 98, over 300 first-class games. A confrontational, aggressive, imposing captain for Wellington, for the Hurricanes, for Hawke's Bay. But Norm, so much more than just being a rugby player and an All Black. A man who completely changed his life, who had all kinds of demons inside. He reached out and helped me considerably when I was going through a really difficult time after my dad died. So I got to know him personally. I got to know who the person was. I have so much love and respect for him, and our thoughts and prayers and condolences to the family at just such an awful time. He was taken way too young. Michael Laws, a close personal friend of Norm's, joined us on the program today to talk about him. On a very sad day, Michael, and I know that you knew Norm really well. You wrote his book and everything. I think of him much more than ever, that he about everything to do with his life other than being an All Black. God, that's a clumsy way of saying it. I hope you understand what I mean.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, Marty. He had a hell of a life in lots of ways, a very tough early life. He was a bully, he was a drug dealer, he was a drunk, he was an All Black. And then he changed his life through sheer force of will, with the aid and support of some very dear women, his mum and his wife.
Yes.
And turned himself into an inspirational leader who could walk easily in both Maori and Pākehā worlds, and dedicated himself to improving the lives of everybody that he came in contact with.
Yeah, and he did mine. He reached out to me at a time when I was at a very low ebb indeed, and I was just saying on air earlier, mate, that I remember saying to him once, well, we got nothing in common, why are you doing this? And he just smiled and he says, how are you, mate? You okay? And we just sit and chat. And look, that documentary that he made about his time at school, about the abuse that he suffered there, about attacking that actor that was the Shortland Street guy, I can't even remember what his name was, and severely beating him when he was at school, and all of that from, getting then paraded in front of the media in 1998. We just started Radio Sport at that stage, Michael, and remember he went through the doors at Queenstown, and that kind of ended his All Black career at that, and the tears at that time. And most people only remembered him for that, and that haka where Richard Cottrell and him went nose to nose, and he was that big brute, and he was, I think Boris was his drunken persona, wasn't it, where he turned into a different character,
Yeah, no, that's right. And that's how I first met Norm. Seriously, it was Jekyll and Hyde stuff. So during the day, personable, attractive, vibrant man. Drunk, he was Hyde, and he was a violent Hyde. But then, as you say, he was an All Black during all that. It was really interesting. Laurie Maines was the one who said to him, you get sober and I'll pick you. And he did. And then he fell back into his old ways. It ended in the denouement of Queenstown. He asked me to write what he wanted to say because the New Zealand Rugby Union had written a script for him that he didn't want to write. And it was that script and really the shame that he felt he'd brought upon his family, not himself, that motivated him to change his life. And he never touched a drop of drink after that day. And I guess you mentioned personal, he saved my life too, Marty, at a very, very difficult time. He entered it. We'd been friends for decades prior to that. But he seemed to have an innate ability to know when you needed him. And he was there. And he was there not just with words, but with practical deeds as well. And in my particular case, even with money. He's the godfather. He will always be the godfather to my daughter, Lucy. It was ironic and actual. I don't know if it was ironic. Maybe it was planned. But he appeared in my daughter's dream this morning before she knew he had passed, and she was dreaming of him and her, and they were walking in Paris.
Wow.
And then she woke up to the news that he had died. And she said, it was odd, Dad, I hadn't dreamed about Norm ever. I did this morning. So they were very close in their own way. But for Arlene, his wife, for his two children, Elizabeth and Alexander, you can imagine this is devastating. He was the patriarch of the Hewitt family. They were everything to him. They were there at the end with him, thank God. And yeah, you always know that it's the days, the weeks, the months afterwards that are going to be the difficult ones. And these kids and Arlene will need all our support in that time to come.
Devlin.
You've got to love sport.
The platform.
Just the very sad news about Norm. And for those of us who've had anything to do with him, we know that he has been suffering motor neuron disease for a really long time. It's a really debilitating disease. Now, and Lachlan, you'll know this, we've gone down to the platform and had staff meetings and functions and various things, and we get flown from Auckland. Michael comes up from Cromwell. And how many times have we sat there for dinner and he's been there for the entree or for half an hour or 45 minutes, mate, and then he's got up and he's had to go, and every time it's like he's off to see Norm. And, you know, he'd always say he doesn't know when or if that's going to be the last time that he gets to see him. And so he's been really crook for a really long time. And so I think, Michael, again, it's a very difficult time. You know, when this news breaks, and on this side of the microphone, you've got an obligation. It is a story to talk about it, to cover it. You put some phone calls around. You try and get in touch with some people. It's just the worst. They call it the death knock. That's what when news reporters used to be journalists. I was married to one for a very long time. They call it the death knock, where something hideous happens, and your job is to go and knock on the door and talk to the family and the loved ones of the person who's died. And it could be in the most hideous of circumstances. It's just something that has just completely put me off always being a news kind of person as far as the media is concerned. Why am I telling you that? It's just because I feel awkward about talking about it. I feel weird about asking Michael to come on and talk about Norm. You feel like you're invading the family's privacy, all this kind of thing. And I remember when I was on Radio Live years ago, people, his brother went missing. And you'll remember this if you can cast your mind back to 2005. And I think he was diving around Mana Island, around the Porirua Basin there of Wellington. It's the last story that I'll tell about this. And he went missing for 2 or 3 days. And, of course, the news media, the newsroom I worked in, we were hounding and pounding that family and everything. And I rang Norm and he said, look, can you just please leave us alone. We can't take any phone calls. I've got nothing to say. And I remember saying to people at the time, just don't call him. Just have the respect not to. He'll call us when he is able to talk. And the story had an incredible happy ending. He took a family heirloom. I don't know whether it was a tiki or it was something that was carved, that was ancient. And he went out there and he cast it into the sea. This is a true story. And because he rang a couple of days later, came on here and told us the story. He cast it into the sea, and it was kind of like an offering, if you believe in this stuff, offering to the gods, offering to whoever it is out there, saying, I'm giving you this, give me my brother back. And then, goddamn, miracle, he gets found. He gets found floating in the water after about 3 or 4 days. And he'd been out there, just bobbing about. Had seen rescue craft, had seen the helicopters, had waved as much as he could, tried to attract attention, nothing. All of a sudden, by some goddamn miracle, he got spotted, he got saved. Rest in peace, Norm Hewitt, and all our love, thoughts, prayers and condolences to your family, your loved ones, and everyone who knew you and knew you well. Origin 3 tomorrow night. This is going to be one of the best sporting games of the year, no matter what code. No matter what sport you like, it's 1-1. It's in the hell pit that is Lang Park. If you're a New South Welsh Blue follower, supporter, like I have been, we've been copping it like the proverbial chook year after year after year. Here we go. The chance to do something that very rarely ever happens, coming from 1-0 down in the series to go up there. Big MG, a legend as far as Blues Origin fan goes, especially for that big stand-up stoush with Wally Lewis in 91. Mark Geyer on the program, talking Origin. All right, now we get down to it, mate, because, I'm thinking about you, MG, and I'm giving you the ball to start with, and I want to see you. Who are you running at?
Oh, mate, whoever's in their front row, I'll go. I think I'll go for the little guy, Reuben Cotter.
Right.
I'll go for the short ass. I think I'm thrown away from Lindsay Collins or... I wouldn't be surprised to see Kaufusi start this game. I know it's going to be very, very physical early on, and I don't think Kaufusi's an impact player. I think it's more of a player you have on the field, and so that might mean you'll see the likes of either a Capewell or a Cotter maybe starting off the bench. But fire and brimstone. If you remember this game a couple of years ago, there was 3 blokes knocked out within 3 minutes.
Right. God, that's right. That's right.
It was just-
That's right.
It was kamikaze
Kamikaze stuff, yeah, wasn't it, Josh? Hey, the other thing, the other thing is that we've talked a lot in the past about players who are Origin players and players who aren't. Can I put a big tick beside Spencer Lenu, because the way he threw his body in on game one when we were down to 12 men, and when I say we people, of course, we're both New South Wales Blues here, me and MG. That is how you play Origin, isn't it?
I couldn't put it better if I tried, mate. You're exactly right. He is a Origin player. He takes no prisoners, and he is maturing so much as a rugby league player. I've watched this kid since he's been 13, 14 years of age, and he's a specialist off the bench at the moment, but slowly but surely he's getting more game time at the Roosters. You'll probably see him get a little bit more game time and get on the field a little bit earlier tomorrow night, because I want to inject him and just the fire and brimstone that he brings is Origin-esque. He's made to do this. He was built to do this and unleash the beast, I say.
We had Joey Johns on the program yesterday, mate, and Andrew said that. And I always love this. I said, when you go up there now, he said, I'm hated. He just interrupted. He said, I'm hated. I said, but there must be people that come and say, he said, everyone hates me, mate. And he said, they've all got something horrible to say. I kind of find that cool. I love the fact that north of the border, they can't stand New South Wales, mate.
No, that goes to the narrative of, the underdogs. They're a smaller state, obviously, in population. New South Wales kicked their ass for a good 40 years before State of Origin come along, and now they get their own back on the big brother. It's always that siege mentality. This time of year, no one does. No one up there in particular. They're more rampant as far as their disdain for us New South Welshmen, and you've got to stick your numbers if you're going north of the border, if you're an ex-player or a current player, because the fans let you know exactly why you shouldn't be there, and this will be no different. This is just kind of look, Madge Maguire, as I said earlier in the chat. I said he's almost single-handedly put this game and the spotlight on this game like I haven't in recent memory. I can't remember being so excited about a game 3 like I'm excited about this one. I've been thinking about it ever since game 2 finished.
Go on.
And usually it's today or tomorrow where you start getting the butterflies as an ex-player. But my butterfly started, basically the start of last week when I started thinking about this third game. I just can't wait to see it wherever you are. Well, it'd be 10 o'clock in your time, I suppose, which is a little bit late, but that's worth the wait, because where we are at 10 p.m. people, make sure you're in front of a TV, because that first 10 minutes you do not want to miss.
As far as the refereeing goes, Joey mentioned yesterday as well. He said, look, we aren't going to get the rub of the green. We're not going to get the calls. He said, because he said that the referee's got 50,000 people screaming at him. He's a human being. It does affect you. You agree with that then?
100%. Yeah, 100%. They're human beings. They are. I think there was a stat running around yesterday about penalty counts and how many penalty counts in the last Origins we won up there. I think it's hardly any. So you got to know that. You got to know that going into that arena, not only are you probably starting 8 or 10 points behind the Queenslanders because of the home ground advantage, which is so profound, but you've also got a human being with a whistle in the middle who it's like no other ground, Marty. You run out that field, and as soon as you take a step onto the pitch, that's the loudest boos you'll ever hear in your life. And then all of a sudden you can hear Queensland coming out of the tunnel, and you're standing on the field waiting for them, and all of a sudden their captain, in this case will be DCE, leading him out. There's this roar that goes over a stadium that I've never heard in my life before. I was lucky enough to hear it 3 or 4 times in my career up there, and wow, it's just it gives you goosebumps thinking about it. It's just if they had a roof, it'd lift off, because it's and that stays for 80 minutes. That does not dissipate one bit. That just stays and stays, and you get to a stage and you can't even hear, like you're in a scrum, you can't even hear your second row partner talking to you, and he's right next to you. It's just unbelievably loud, and that you got to take that into account. I think Madge Maguire recently, maybe before they went up to Brisbane, up at their camp in the mountains, he hired a DJ to play ultra loud music to try and simulate what it's going to be like to run out onto Suncorp Stadium, which you never can, but it's something that Madge is thinking about. So it's going to be interesting, Marty. I think it's going to be 20 points to 16 New South Wales, and I think Liam Martin will be the man of the match and man of the series.
Joey said that to us yesterday. He said exactly the same. You've described it beautifully. He said you get smacked in the face by it. He said it's an atmosphere that is actually real. As he said, it's like walking into a wind tunnel off a jet engine or something. A sonic boom is what he called it. All right, 2 quick questions before we let you go. I just want your thoughts. You mentioned earlier, Warriors fans will be, absolutely fascinated to hear what you think. We've got such a tough run home. I started the show, MG, by saying, look, just beat Canberra on Friday night. Forget everything else. Forget the fixture list. Forget the computations. Forget the bloody points table. Just win this next game.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Marty. You start worrying about calculations and permutations, well, you're taking your eye off the ball. The old cliche, one game at a time, and that's what they've got to do this weekend. They showed brilliance on many occasions, the Warriors, and on other occasions they play like they've never met each other. So if they can string a few wins together, and cement themselves in that top 8 come finals time, they could be a real danger to any team. I don't want to play the Warriors in semi-finals. They're so unpredictable that they can do anything. They can beat any team in the competition on their day. But unfortunately, at the moment, they doesn't come around enough. So they start getting a little bit of consistency in their game. They've got the players. God knows they've got the players. It's all about attitude. If they can get their attitude right, there's no reason why they can't be a real force in this competition.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full.
The Tight Five.
5 separate sporting topics, 60 seconds there or thereabouts, or probably a couple of minutes, let's be honest, on each. When that happens, we go on to the next topic. I want to talk about Norm Hewitt. And what you know about him, Lachlan. Tohu Harris out for the season. Well, now we know because he hasn't been the Tohu Harris, the giant that we have come to expect over the last weeks and months. Cycling New Zealand. Is there a bigger bunch of bozo administrators in New Zealand sport than this mob? The answer to that is no. And if you read the story on Stuff about Sammy Maxwell, what a disgrace these people are. They need to be name shamed. They need to be called out. And we need to know how many of these same administrators have also been involved in the administrative botch-ups over the last few years. I want to discuss that. Can somebody, the next player that leaves the Phoenix, turn the lights out? My God, who is staying? I mean, I've got a list of 4 players here that are leaving the Phoenix after the most successful season the club's ever had. Why are they all leaving? And I don't think Marco Rojas replaces the 4 that are leaving. And the Raiders. Got to win that game. That's how I started the show. Warriors fans, think no further than that game. Let's start with Norm Hewitt. What do you know about Norm Hewitt? And is all you know about him prior to today and what we've been talking about, Lachlan, is the fact that he is a former All Black hooker?
I learnt initially about him very little because I wasn't much of a reader at the time. I more preferred the pictures. But in that All Blacks book behind you that I've had since I was a very young man, there is a little page in the 80s or the 90s at some point where Norm Hewitt's in there. And the only other thing I know about him is that my grandfather, who is no longer with us, told me that the reason why he hated Southland Rugby, because family's from Hawke's Bay, is because they stole all of our players, namely, should I say, Norm Hewitt. And so I always knew Norm Hewitt as the guy who, it's not really his fault, but indirectly caused my grandfather to hate Southland Rugby.
And on him. What a great reason. Yeah. What a great reason. The mainstream media sites have got this confrontational haka between him and Richard Cockrell because it's great pictures and it's clickbait and everything else. And Norm was a very proud All Black, a very ferocious competitor on the field. A text has just come in, which I think sums it up perfectly. For the younger folk out there, Big Norm would have had dozens more caps if he was playing today, as back in the day, reserves didn't make the field much back then. Frosty says, R.I.P. Big Norm. So he was competing with Sean Fitzpatrick for the hooker spot.
The other thing I was going to quickly say is that the only other thing that I really know about him, it's a guess, is that because I looked up his stats earlier, is that he wouldn't have gotten much time on the field because of Sean Fitzpatrick.
Because of Sean Fitzpatrick. Because, in those days, the bench wasn't impact and there weren't 8 players creating impact. Pretty much you had to have 3 broken legs before you got dragged off the field. So in 1997, in that drawn test against England at the end of that year, we'd gone through unbeaten that year. I think we were playing at Wembley then. And I remember it well. Hewitt was on the field. He was about to take a line out and he got subbed off and Sean Fitzpatrick came on, and he just throws the ball away in absolute disgust. You did not want to come off the field if you were an All Black back in those days. It was really defeatist to come off the field. R.I.P. Big Norm. Tohu Harris, wrist injury, out for the season, surgery needed. Does this explain why he hasn't really been the player this year? I mean, this guy goes on the field like Lazarus. He's got bandages upon bandages, as he's got knee bandages and everything else. He's a walking wounded warrior, but he is such a big loss for the club, Lachlan, as a captain, as an inspiration, but just as a really skilled player and the point of difference that he makes. When he plays, I think the Warriors are a better side.
Well, since he's obviously battled a couple of injuries here and there this year, but since so he's out for a few games, played the Roosters game, came back against the Cowboys and played 4 straight, the last 4, I think, for the Warriors. Their last game was against Brisbane, wasn't it? No, it wasn't. Dogs, so he didn't play the Dogs game. But in those 4 games, he played very limited minutes compared to what he'd been playing all year. So he's obviously been carrying things all season, and now it's just got into a point where he's like, no, I can't keep playing. He's a huge loss, but he's not one of these players anymore. I don't think there's a huge loss based on his skill set and what he does on the field. Obviously, he gets through he's an absolute workhorse, but it's more so the intangibles of the experienced head, the leader, and a guy who's won a premiership before and knows how to win them, what he brings to a team on the field. So I think that's the most valuable thing that the Warriors are now missing.
Well, to me, he's the natural captain. Who's the captain now?
Mitch Barnett, probably, because he's been standing in as captain, isn't he?
How much are we going to see of him, though, after Origin? I'm sure he's going to fly from Brisbane to Canberra. There's no way that he's not going to be there.
No, and I'd be surprised that for a lot of these teams that are fighting for the top 8, that your key players who are coming off Origin duty, I would be shocked if they don't play. Now, it's similar with my Brisbane Broncos. If the likes of Reece Walsh and Pat Carrigan don't back up this week and then throw everything out the door, burn it, I don't care. You guys clearly don't want to push for the finals. I'd think that Mitch Barnett will be the exact same.
Started the show by saying, Warriors fans, it comes down to Friday night. Beat Canberra. There's no point having a conversation about anything else. There's no point looking ahead further than that. There's no point talking about the Tigers and the Eels at home. I don't care. If we don't beat Canberra, then I believe the mountain is too steep from that point on. Because at the moment, the Warriors, 2 wins outside the 8. Don't beat Canberra, that extends to 3 wins, and you're down to 6 games with a bye. And at that stage, you are absolutely relying on everyone else, and you are playing everyone else anyway. So you lose another game against a team, it's almost like a 6-pointer relegation battle in English football. Do you agree with me? Just shut up about everything. Just beat Canberra.
Because
just win the goddamn game.
As a fan, and many Warriors fans have experienced this and have been let down by the team. I mean, the rhetoric around this club for how long have they been around? 28 years? 29 years?
Okay.
30 years
Make
next
your
year,
point.
actually. No, it's that it's a team that beats the good teams sometimes, but backs it up with losing to the bad teams, and they're never consistent. They look spectacular on their day, but they look terrible on other days. And they're a team that at this stage of the season, all the fans, all the analysts are saying, all the biased analysts towards them are saying, well, if we win our last 6, well, don't worry, because we'll win 7 of these last 8. Mathematically, that is tied to the Warriors. Those quotes, it's what makes the club who they are in their history. Anyway, point is that as a fan of the Broncos, I'm sure the Warriors fans feel this as well. I hate this point of the season where you're on the outside looking in and you're looking at your schedule and you're knowing, gee, my team's got to win these games or whatnot. It's going to be so tense. Oh, yeah, well, we've got this team this week, but then a couple of weeks we've got that team. They're harder to play, whatnot. But then we've got them. They're easy. As a fan, it frustrates me looking ahead. I just want to focus on this weekend. I can't imagine how annoying it actually gets and frustrating for the players and the coaches when they're sitting there going, geez, we've got Cronulla and then we've got the Dogs. Oh, I can't think about it. Just worry about the Raiders. Just worry about the Raiders.
Win against the Raiders.
Because there's no point talking, as you say, about anything if you lose this weekend.
Sammy Maxwell. Now, Sammy Maxwell is not a name that just jumps out at me when I think about New Zealand, the Olympic team, our cycling team, or whatever. I read this article yesterday on Stuff. It's a really good read, which makes me wonder why you can't do articles about the White Ferns and you can't do articles about the Football Ferns and you can't write truthfully about those teams. But Sammy Maxwell was denied a place in the New Zealand Olympic cycling team because Cycling New Zealand, in all their infinite wisdom, and of course I'm being incredibly sarcastic by saying that, brought out a medical report from years ago where Sammy has battled an eating disorder for years. And on the basis of that flawed medical report from years ago, decided not to select her. She went to the Sports Tribunal and has now been added to the team. So just the sheer trauma of having to go through that. Now let's go through Cycling New Zealand's administrative excellence over the last few years. Got rid of the coach to start with, called him a bully, did a big report. Peden was his name, Anthony Peden or something like that, wasn't it? I remember this years ago, right? Never interviewed him for that review and that report. Never interviewed him at all. Accused him of all kinds of things. He ended up going to China. It was only a couple of years ago when we started Radio Live, Lachlan, that Cycling New Zealand employed a whole lot of highfalutin, fancy-dancy, double-barrelled surname law firms to fight their own athletes over pay rates, over expense accounts, over being able to reimburse expenses, over all of these things. Cycling New Zealand sent 25, remember, we did a list of this during the Commonwealth Games, 25 different managers to the Commonwealth Games. All of those people are on six-figure salaries and more. The athletes might get 50 grand if they win a gold medal. And now, once again, these same bozo botch-up administrators are hiding behind expensive law firms while they come up with these kind of decisions, fighting their own athletes. Now, if you remember a couple of years ago when this happened, the CEO just basically vanished off the face of the planet, remember? Stress leave. And then got incorporated into Sport New Zealand like all of these idiots do. They end up with a desk somewhere, but if you ring Sport New Zealand, of course, remember what happened a couple of weeks ago when Brendan Telfer tried to ring? Oh, they wouldn't give out any, they won't, they're like the CIA. You can't even find out who works in the bloody joint, yet it's our taxpayer money that pays these people. Cycling New Zealand, you are a waste of space. What needs to happen is, Mark Robinson, this is who you need to call a review into. We need to know who these administrators are. Are they involved in all of these cock-ups? Out them, name them, shame them, and just remove them. Because clearly all of you are goddamn incompetent, and I feel for Sammy Maxwell and your family, and I hope that you go to the Olympics and you shove a big one right up the backside of all of these morons who denied you your rightful place.
Just quickly, just to correct you one little thing. I agree with everything you said, but just that the former CEO who vanished off the face of the earth went back to Canada where he's from. So he didn't actually go to Sport New Zealand, but I agree with everything.
Well, I hope he's got a contract with Sport New Zealand and he's providing logistical advice and writing email trees and attending what the Zoom meetings.
Who's the old Speaker of the House? Is that what they call it?
Trevor Mallard.
Yeah. Well, the job he got in Ireland.
That's it. Yeah.
Devlin. The platform.
One of the things I like doing after the All Blacks play is getting a perspective from outside of New Zealand. I think this is really important because most of the mainstream media sports coverage these days is a cheese fest. It's just rah-rah cheerleading puffball stuff. And I think we're all old enough and have watched enough All Black rugby to be honest about our team. I gave us a B after that series. Scott Robertson himself said, hey, we've learned a hell of a lot of lessons, and thank God those lessons were learnt winning as opposed to losing. He knows that this team can get a lot better, and he knows that his coaching group have got to do whatever it takes to get this team a lot better. Talking to Will Greenwood today about the series. He was a World Cup winner with England in 2003, 55 tests for England, and he played 3 tours with the Lions. In 51 seconds, he sums up how I feel about this. I don't care about Instagram. I don't care about NZR+. I don't care about the TikTok. All I care about is honest assessment of my favourite team.
Rugby is entertainment, but players don't play to entertain. They play to win. And of the last 4 tests, England have lost 3 out of 4, and we've beaten Japan. England fans are going, we love what we're seeing. We're back. Now, that may be because it's been a pretty low bar for a while. But however, I think a lot of people who know and watch a lot of rugby are enjoying this side. They're a nice team to watch. They're an easy team to support. I know it's not about social media and ticking boxes, but they're doing a lot of good stuff in the communication, in getting the supporters involved, in being realistic where they are. You can put up with defeats if you're not being sold a load of codswallop, if you're being spoken to as adults and you're being spoken and they're saying what they're seeing and they're saying what they're playing.
The box versus the mix. Well, that was thunderous, wasn't it? I don't know whether you watched any of that 2-test series. What a bummer that there isn't a third and decider like with Origin. I mean, come on, World Rugby. You know, is it really that difficult to figure this out? Oh, no, we can't. The fixture list has got to be done 4 years in advance, like the Rugby World Cup seedings and so forth. It's such a shame, isn't it? A drawn series between these two teams who I think clearly right now are the two best teams in the world. We've got to step up and match that physicality come September. Because the All Blacks after Fiji, we play Argentina twice. We don't play Australia till after we go to Africa, to Joburg and to Cape Town. Patrick McCarry from Rugby Pass with his thoughts on the Box versus the Mix. It's a hell of a victory for Ireland.
Yeah, oh, definitely it is. Yeah, and I saw there's an interesting somebody posted on social media after that the first game that the world champions have lost after World Cup in I think it's after 2016, 2020 and now 2024 as well. Irish players have been the first ones to beat them. So I think they said Robbie Henshaw, Conor Murray and Tadhg Furlong have all had that honour of being the kind of first side to knock over the world champions then as well. So that's great. I know it's like there's no trophies in it for us, like, you know, but because I was saying it was funny enough, like I think when myself and yourself, Martin, were last chatting, you know, I was kind of cock a hoop and we were strutting around here in Ireland before the World Cup, and now we kind of we had our cough softened a little bit after what the All Blacks did to us there in Paris as well. But even there, like the Six Nations win. You know, that was great for everybody, kind of got everybody back on board, you know, reaffirmed some things about this kind of team as well. But yeah, I still think there was some doubts about Ireland, but going down to South Africa and kind of finishing leveling a series, and, you know, of course you kind of have the sweeter victory of, you know, being 1-0 down and then kind of leveling it. Like it feels good. So Ireland are going to go off into that summer break, kind of feeling, you know, a little bit better about themselves, and they found out about a few kind of other players that came through and got a chance when some of the kind of the frontline players were injured as well. So yeah, absolutely brilliant. And you know, as I was up early, I suppose over here, this part of the world, watching England and New Zealand, and that was a brilliant, you know, test match to start the day with, and Bowden Barrett coming on and you know, pulling out I think somebody said he should have got man of the match, and you could easily agree with him, but that teed it up for the day. But then yeah, Ireland, as you mentioned, and South Africa ramped it up again another level, and it just goes, I suppose, heading into like you know, you guys will be facing them out soon enough. Like, it just shows you that this side are still there to be beaten, and fair play to South Africa for somehow being able to dig deep again after, you know, winning back-to-back World Cups and still proving that they're like an absolutely massive force in world rugby.
You've won 2 out of the last 3 against them. Pat McCarry from Rugby Pass with us. Okay, they kick 8 penalties. You kept them scoreless, which is an amazing thing to do. Kept them tryless, rather. And then 2 drop goals and 1 after the buzzer in a very nervous way as the referee decided he was going to have a look at whether the South African guy had slipped over, taken a dive, or actually been poleaxed. Just combating that physicality, though, because, you know, the Springboks bring it. That's what they pride themselves on. They want to bash you up. And I suppose us All Black fans are looking at that going, can we match that for a start? So what did you do to kind of, you know, you think, combat that and put yourselves in a winning position?
Yeah, well, it's kind of, a lot of it is mentality, and, you know, it's funny because I was, you know, going into the last game of any season, like, and sometimes you might even see that with Southern Hemisphere sides who come up for those November internationals, that, you know, some of them are already on the beach already as well. But so how do you get out of that mindset of, we've got 1 game left to go, but we have to empty the tank here again. We have to like dip into any last reserves that we have as well. And Andy Farrell really set the tone, I think. So a lot of it is your kind of mentality and kind of tweaks and tactics as well. But yeah, Farrell kind of went in, and you could see from his press briefings during the week and the way he kind of addressed the media, and even the decision to drop the captain, Peter O'Mahony, like, that sends a message to the rest of the team that, you know, we're not here to mess around. We're here to kind of win games. And I think Farrell, I think he's 50 games as Ireland head coach, and he's only ever lost once, you know, in a back-to-back game. Like, so they don't normally lose 2 in a row. So whatever, they got those guys together and they knocked some heads, and there was a lot of talk about we have to, like, I think they were just disgusted about how they played that first half in the first test there in Pretoria. And that was the kind of thing where, you know, you don't compromise on these type of things. You don't compromise on physicality as well. So they made the decision to kind of move Tadhg Byrne into the back row and then bring in James Ryan as well. So there's a little bit more bulk coming in, and Peter O'Mahony was left on the bench. So that was the biggest decision of all. And then a guy who had a brilliant game, I thought, for Ireland as well was Ronan Kelleher. You know, he's kind of been into the backup role for Dan Sheehan. Dan Sheehan is such a brilliant player as well, but Kelleher's got a bit more physicality. He's got a bit more, you know, bulk to him as well. So bringing in James Ryan and then bringing in Kelleher as well, that kind of added a little bit more, you know, kind of steel to the Irish pack. And then it really showed. It showed across the place. You're just kind of thinking of guys who really stood up. Robbie Henshaw as well was fantastic. Connor Murray then helps, like to have like a big 6'2", 6'3" scrum half who's able to throw himself around the place as well. And you could see like from that first 10 or 15 minutes, there was South Africans were pumping blood, and it was almost like going up to, if you got thrown in like one of those prison movies, go up to the biggest guy you can find and throw a punch and draw some blood and show you're not afraid. It was a little bit like that. And to see someone like Etzebeth have to get his head wrapped every now and then, and Mostert as well, and then LaRue unfortunately having his head knocked, and it was all out like kind of war for the first 20 minutes, and that's what Farrell kind of demands of his players, and it's no bad thing having someone like Paul O'Connell there, a guy who's kind of been there and done it, and seen as a kind of like a legend in this country, as your forwards coach as well. So those guys left them, no uncertain terms. We're going out and we're going to stick it on them, and it really showed in that first 20 minutes.
We need to talk.
6 quick questions.
We need to talk
about the South African Island series.
Next!
Does it need a third match, a deciding match at squared at one's Lachlan?
Yes.
Well, why the hell, World Rugby, don't you organise this?
Now, for a little, I remember in 2007, that was a World Cup year, but in 2007, I can't speak for 2006. In 2007, we had 2 matches against France and then 1 against Canada. In 2008, we had 2 against England, 1 against Ireland. 2009, 2 against France, 1 against Italy. And then it was 2010. From then onwards, they started doing 3 test series, 3 against Ireland, 3 against Wales, 3 against these guys, whatnot. But for whatever, that started in 2012. For whatever reason, they've stopped doing it. South Africa, for example, had a 3 test series. Not South Africa. England had a 3 test series with Australia only 2 years ago.
Yeah,
and that was great.
Yeah. And the Lions play 3 test series.
Yeah. And in that same, we had Ireland for 3 tests 2 years ago. They do it in the cricket as well.
Why do they do it? I mean, if it's going to end 1-1, South Africa or Ireland, the 2 best teams in the world.
Maybe for this World Cup cycle, so for these 4 years, they've decided to go 2-1. I don't know.
Next!
Are those 2 teams, the Box and the Mix, the 2 best in the world?
Well, it's hard to say. I think South Africa is certainly the best team still. I think once we get through the rest of the year, then sure, because we would have played Ireland by the end of this year. And if we lose that game, then yes, Ireland will be better than us.
The next. Are the All Blacks 3rd in the world on form right now after what you've seen, or can we claim to be second?
I'd still say we're second.
We'd beat Ireland.
I'd say right now we're second in the world.
We'd beat Ireland.
Well, no, there's a couple of things that are tricky here. We're only starting our test season now while
So is
England,
South Africa?
Hold up. No. While South Africa haven't been perfect, while England and Ireland and France and whatnot are coming to the end of theirs. So they're a bit more refined and whatnot. So at the end of the year, when we go on the road and play Ireland, it'll be the start of their season, but we're on the road. If we lose that, yes, they are the second best team in the world.
All Blacks right now the 2nd or 3rd best team in the world? Second.
Next!
Can we match the physicality of the Springboks in Africa?
No.
Or can I rephrase the question?
No, don't bother.
Can we match
No, don't bother rephrasing.
Yes!
It's going to be reminiscent of what happened in Nelspruit 2 years ago and also Twickenham last year.
Where are we right now better than the Springboks from what you've observed in the 2 tests versus England and them versus Ireland? Where are we better?
We're much better at screwing up our own line out. I'll say this. There were moments, particularly in the second test.
We're better on social media.
There were moments in the second test where we were, I keep using the word that Justin Marshall used in commentary, ferocious at the breakdown. We were very quick at getting turnovers. So maybe the pace mixed in with the physicality at the breakdown is somewhere we could be better. But there's not really a lot that stands out at this stage.
What would you take right now from those 2 tests, Joburg and Cape Town?
A loss and the other one being a draw, at the least. I'd take that.
So we'll take a squared series.
Actually, no. I'd take us winning 1.
Yeah. Okay.
If we come away without any
at all
wins,
that we win both of those test matches in Africa?
Oh, there's a chance, sure. Who knows? We could be a superbly run machine, well-oiled machine by the time those 2 tests, because we've got Argentina twice.
That's right, at home, yeah.
Which means that South Africa have Australia twice, right?
Mm-hmm.
So who knows? We could actually turn into a real powerhouse
Right
side.
now, what would you take out of the two tests? You'll take a 1-1?
I'll take a 1-1.
I will take a 1-1 every day of the week, and I'm sure the All Blacks feel the same. LBP with TMG. That is Let's Be Positive with Twizzle's Matt Gunn. Every Tuesday on the program, our man from the Deep South, he gets positive about sport. And no matter what it is, he just gets positive. He's also chicken winged himself. How? Well, he can explain that. But here, went to the bunker at least 3 weeks for this, so he says. He's chicken winged himself. Matt, explain that to us, mate. You've given yourself 2 weeks off the field doing what?
Oh, Martin, as you mentioned, it's been freezing cold down here. Between last Wednesday and yesterday, the highest daytime temperature was minus 0.9. We've had a hoar frost. We've been down to between sort of -7 and -10 overnight. And I had to go and fix a frozen water pipe, one of the banes of my existence here down at the bore. So I'm down there in the freezing cold and the fog, and somehow I've slipped. And I put my arm out to steady myself in the little shed that the bore's in. And instead of hitting the wall of the shed, I hit the door. The door flung open, and I went flying out of the door backwards. I've probably fallen down about 2.5 or 3 steps, straight onto me back. And as I was flailing around falling, trying to save myself somehow, almost like a winger or a fullback under a Matt Burton bomb, I didn't know what to do. I've somehow put my arm behind myself and landed full force on my arm, chicken winging myself. I've popped the tendons and the muscle from the top of that joint in your shoulder down to the bicep. I tell you, Marty, it's freezing cold. I've stood up. I've tried to walk it off in back play for about 5 minutes.
Yeah, of course you do. Yeah.
And then I had to signal to the coach myself that I'm going to have to come off the field. And then a couple of minutes later, there's a message that I received saying that I've been referred to the bunker. Adam G's sent me to the judiciary, and I've got 4 weeks for an illegal chicken wing tackle on myself. So I'm sidelined for 3 with a shoulder and 4 with a suspension, all because of the fog and freezing weather.
Well, I mean, the thing is with your judiciary is that she really doesn't suffer fools. And I should imagine that, yes, there was empathy there for the injury, but not the way that it actually happened, or not the fact that you are now going to be sidelined for the 4 weeks.
No, there was a tiny smidge of sympathy, but when I was telling my wife and daughter that I'd actually really hurt myself here, they looked at me like I was going to have to prove it with some kind of X-ray. You know what I mean?
Yes, that's it, yeah.
Yeah, right, you fell over.
You fell
right,
over, yeah.
All right, okay. So, yeah, a minimal sympathy in this family. But anyway, a little bit of rehab, a little bit of massage, plenty of deep heat and some painkillers. And, well, I'm sort of getting on with the job, I'm just focused on returning to the game before semi-final time.
Well, it might be hoarfrost and it might be negative weather down there, but surely the Wallabies warmed the cockles of your heart. That's 2 from 2 against a powerful Welsh forward pack.
Well, I think the good thing about the game is that it was pretty comprehensive in the end, although it was close during the game. We won it quite well, but actually we didn't look too bad. When we started to spread the ball wide, certainly from back play, we look like we're a little bit reinvigorated and we've come with something else. And you know what? 2 in a row.
Yeah.
2 in a row.
Yeah.
Back to back. We've been getting pants, left and right for the last few years, and the European sides have been pumping us as well. So, no, a tremendous start for this rugby season under old Schmitty. And I was quite impressed with what I saw. Yes, it's only Wales, but, I mean, you could probably say about the All Blacks it was only England.
Let's be positive about the New South Wales Blues going up to Queensland tomorrow, because the way that we played in Game 2, we absolutely blasted them off the park. It's a really weird series, this one, isn't it? Because you look at Game 1, you think, okay, well, how much can we actually seriously analyse it when it's 13 against 12? And because Queensland won that game, they could easily drop Game 2 knowing that they're playing Game 3 at home. So I don't know how much we can really seriously analyse that. So it all actually comes down to this tomorrow night, which is exactly as the script writers and all the promotional people and the marketing bods wanted. a decider, and it's at Lang Park. Mate, I reckon that this is going to be one of the best games of sport we'll see all year. I hope it is.
Well, I hope it is. Because in that first game, as you say, with a send-off, it's in that sort of intensity, extremely hard to win and well beaten. Game two, I thought that New South Wales panicked a little bit and made some changes that maybe weren't necessary, given they lost with 12 players in game one. But the changes they made were phenomenal. The team looked better than it has in probably the last 3 or 4 years of origin. So it is set up. Lang Park means Queensland go in favourites, I think. I think you have to take that into account. I mean, it's the kind of game that, if you got to pick one or two this year, it'd be one of the rugby league games that you'd want to go and see. It'd be right up there with the grand final, depending on whether or not your team's in it. But, look, I'd like to think New South Wales, and, as much as we like to think and analyse, the truth is that it'll depend on a couple of individual moments of brilliance, probably either way. And if it happens early in the game, maybe it'll open up for the Blues like it did in game two. But I suspect Queensland will tackle a bit better than they did last time.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. That's our podcast for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to listen to the entire show, 1 till 4, Monday to Friday, download the Platform app, and via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to whatever shows over however many weeks at your leisure, at your listening pleasure. Platform Plus. First thing to do, though, is download the Platform app.
Devlin.
Unbelievable. Incredible.
The Platform.